G'day folks. I've been promising for a while to do some basic videos on legal principles that I think people need to understand. So this is the first in that series. So what I'm looking at here is the meaning of words in law, and this is like a foundational concept you need to get your head around. So what I'm going to point out to you is that absolutely what you take the meaning of a word to be is probably not what it means in the law. And I'm going to put one evidence up just quickly, because we don't need to spend a long time on this, and then I'm going to just quickly show you how you can sift through the correct meaning of law you should be going to. So what I've got here for you, this is an extract from I'll read what's at the top. Following is an extract commencing at page 52 of 75 of Commonwealth of Australia Official Committee Hansard Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs References Committee. This is the Attorney General got himself in a bit of hot water some years ago, George Brandis. He claimed to have consulted the Solicitor General on an important matter. And when the Solicitor General was later asked if he had been consulted by Senator Brandis, he said he had not. That meant that Senator Brandis was brought before a Senate committee on charges of having misled the Parliament. And this is I'm just going to read the whole lot of bits in red, which is part of the defence Senator Brandis was offering up. So Senator Brandis says, "This is not a word that has one meaning in law and another meaning in common speech." Remembering too, Senator Brandis is a Queen's Counsel, so he is a highly qualified lawyer and he knows what he's talking about. So right there is the implication that there are words that do have a different meaning in common speech as opposed to in the law. He goes on to say, there are some words that have one meaning in common speech and another, more technical meaning in law. You won't get better confirmation than that, folks. That's the Attorney General is the top law officer in the nation. Okay? So this is a Queen's Counsel. At the time he said this, the top law officer in the nation. And he is telling you right there that there are words that in common speech have one meaning and in the law have a different meaning. And then he just goes on to say, if a court were considering the question of whether on a particular set of facts the word consult was appropriate to use to describe them, a court would go to a dictionary as the best evidence, the lexicographical evidence of the meaning of the word. So consult was what he said he did. The Solicitor General said he wasn't consulted. With the argument was on the technicalities of what is a consultation and what is not. And Senator Brandis said, well, if you go to the law dictionaries, the word consult isn't separately defined in the law dictionaries. So when that's not in evidence, then you go to the common speech, which is the Common English Dictionary, for a definition of consult. And that's how he extracted himself from a difficult situation that he found himself in. So I'll now explain that to you, how that works. And this is really the key. All that really was to show you absolutely words have different meanings in the law than you understand them to have. And if you don't know the different meaning and you use them in a legal setting, you're going to trip yourself up 9 times out of 10. So let's have a look. I've drawn up a little chart here, the legal hierarchy of terms. This is to give you an idea of where you should go looking for what a particular word means in the law. So at the very top of this tree, the first place you go, I've got there, term defined in the statute in question. So if the legal issue you have is, let's say it's a tax issue, well, you need to determine whether a particular term that an argument hinges upon is defined in the tax code. So if the term is defined in the tax code, then that is what the term means, irrespective of what you think it means in everyday life. Okay. Now, if it's not defined in the tax code, where do you go next? Well, if you follow that chart down, The next place you go is a term defined in a statute of general application. And I've got there, as an example, the Acts Interpretation Act 1901 for Australian Commonwealth statutes. I had meant to look up a term defined in the Acts Interpretation Act, but I haven't. I'm just going to invent one. One that I think's probably there. Let's presume that the term Commonwealth of Australia is defined in the Acts Interpretation Act 1901. Okay, so if we want to know what the Commonwealth of Australia means in a particular statute, the first thing we would do is go to the particular statute, let's say it's the tax code, and see, does the tax code define Commonwealth of Australia? Because if it does, irrespective of what it says in the Acts Interpretation Act or anywhere else in the world, that's what it will mean in that statute. But if it's not defined in the tax code, then the next place you would go for a definition is the Acts Interpretation Act. And then that is the definition that would be used in the tax code of the term Commonwealth of Australia. Well, we might as well continue. Let's assume it is I'm pretty sure it is in the Acts Interpretation, but let's assume it's not. If you couldn't find it in the tax code and you couldn't find it in the Acts Interpretation Act, where do you go next? Well, as it says there, is the term defined in a law dictionary? So once you've exhausted the first two, the next place you go is to look and see, is that term defined in the law dictionary? If it's not defined there, the next port of call is a Common English Dictionary. And if we go to the Attorney General's example of the word consult, he was saying, well, you won't find it in a statute, and I wasn't speaking statutorily anyway. You won't find it in the Acts Interpretation Act. You also won't find it defined in a law dictionary. So, in terms of that word, you should go looking in the Common English Dictionary. Now, if it wasn't defined in the Common English Dictionary, which means no one's come up with a definition for it, you would then just go to common usage, however you could determine what the common usage might be. And that's it, that's a hierarchy of terms. So that is a hierarchy you need to know if you want to do any research on legal issues. If you're going to argue about a fine or penalty, or a traffic infringement, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter, small issue, large issue. If you don't even know what the words mean that you're reading, you're going to trip yourself up every time. So you need to know that hierarchy in order to properly discern the meaning of words. And trust me, I'm not going to put an example, but trust me, words I wouldn't normally use, but go looking if you don't trust me. You will be surprised once you start looking at law dictionaries just how different some of the words that you use every day, how different the meaning is in the law. Absolutely different, not related at all, or sometimes the polar opposite of what you think the word means. You absolutely need to know this, folks. Otherwise, you're going to be lost. This is the first thing I think you need to know in order to understand what the law is trying to say and how it's being used against you. Okay, leave it there, folks.